Hey everybody, welcome back to homerecordingmadeeasy.com and here on my YouTube channel, and this is part 2 of our Universal Audio Luna beginner's guide. In this session, or in this video, we're going to create our session, import some audio, and I'm going to walk you through the layout of both the mixer screen and the edit screen so you can kind of get a feel for the simplicity and the clean and the tidiness of Universal Audio Luna. And I was going to show you how easy it is to kind of find things and get ourselves started. But before we get started, make sure you check the links in the description box below so you can go back and see part 1 where we walk through some of the main screens and some of the different features that come along with Universal Audio Luna, as well as the follow-up video to a video I did 3 years ago, which was entitled 9 Reasons Not to Switch to Universal Audio Luna. 3 years later, I did an update showing you some of the things that's been fixed with Universal Audio Luna since its release, and I give you my opinion on whether or not I think you ought to consider switching if you're in the market for a new DAW. So that's what we're going to do. Make sure you check that out. But before we get started, like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell. Also, if this is your first time here, go to homerecordingmadeeasy.com. I want to give you a $100 mixing course absolutely free. It's right on the homepage. It's my gift to you just for visiting homerecordingmadeeasy.com. And if you stick around to the end of the video, I'm going to give you something else for free at Home Recording Made Easy. So here we are on the home screen, if you will. When we first open up Luna, last video we went through all these different boxes on the right-hand side. We looked at all the different tabs on the left-hand side. Now we're going to actually create a session. So again, what I love about Luna is the simplicity, the cleanliness, and how streamlined and easy everything seems to be compared to some other DAWs. Most of them actually, where you open them up and there are buttons and icons and so many things you can do, which is great. For a beginner, sometimes it's a little overwhelming. It's hard to find things. UA made this really, really simple. So let's create a session. First thing we're going to do is name it. I'm going to call it Luna Test. Okay, now if we wanted to, we could start from a template. We'll talk about creating templates in another video. Here we can also change the tempo, the time signature. We can tap to find the tempo. But most importantly, we want to know, well, where are we going to put our Luna session? So if we just left click on this, it's going to open up a folder that I put on my desktop called Luna Test. That's where we're going to put it. Beneath that, we have our recent session list. If we had any recent sessions that we were working on, it would appear in this list here. Right now, we don't have any because this is our first one. And we also can open up an existing one from a location on our computer or an external hard drive. Let's just hit create. There we go. So this is what we're presented with. We're presented with our edit screen here. Pretty common to what you see in other DAWs, but we're going to walk through this whole screen here. If we wanted to see, well, where's the mixer, right? If we hit Command equals, that's going to bring us to our mixer screen. Okay, so we have Command equals will switch back and forth between the two windows. You can put one window on one display. If you had a secondary display, you can keep the other one right in front of you. We're just going to work with this one at this time. So before we get started and walk through everything here, let's import some audio. Let's set up our mixing session for future videos. So we could just come up to File, go to Import, and we can navigate to where our files are. Just left click and grab all of these. So I can either take these and drag them right onto the screen, or I can just hit open. And now it's importing our files. And oh boy, is that really blue. Uncle Dave looks like a Smurf now. Okay, let's turn on that brightness. Okay, so let's walk through before we start. In the next video, we'll organize this in color code and rename tracks and all that stuff. But for this video, let me just walk you through what are we looking at here? How do we find things? Okay, so on the left-hand side here, we have our tracks list. Okay, if you're a Pro Tools user, Studio One user, Cubase user, this will look familiar to you. So you have our track list here, which is all the audio, the tracks that we just created by importing these into our system. Okay, we can create new tracks up here. We can, by clicking this box, we can create a new audio track, an instrument track, or a bus. We'll do that again in future videos. How many tracks we want to create is a mono or stereo. We can name the track. And do we want to add the Universal Audio Console extension? Again, we'll talk about that in another video. We can have none, or we can use the API. We can hit cancel there, okay? So here's our track box here. If I select this with my mouse, you'll see that it's walking up and down the track list here. And right next to that, we have our little icon, which signifies this is an audio track. If it was an instrument track, that icon would be different. And if it was a bus, it would be different. We have our little stoplight here that we could click on and off, and that's going to show or hide the track in view. So as you can see, that acoustic guitar track is disappearing when I'm clicking on it. I can change the color of that just by clicking this little blue box here, and a little color wheel comes up. So now you can see that better. That's the show hide feature. Okay, that's our audio tracks here, our track list. Here's our main output that's automatically created when we create our session. Down here is our grouping, where we can add groups. We can make like a group, a drum group, a guitar group, so on and so forth. Again, we'll talk about that in other videos. Next to this, right next to this is something unique to Luna that I really like. This is our channel strip for the selected track right here on the edit screen. Okay, this is unique to Universal Audio Luna. So right now we're looking at the acoustic guitar channel strip. If I were to go to the bass one, you'll see we have our bass channel strip. This is so you can do everything that you can normally do if I hit Command equals from this screen, right? Adding plugins, moving faders, panning, so on and so forth. Command equals. We can do all of that on a track by track basis right here, which is kind of handy, right? You don't see that in any other DAW, which at least not that I'm aware of. I kind of like that, okay? Next to that, we have all the tracks that we just added. Obviously, above that, we have all our different utility timelines, our loop, bars and beats that we can change. We could turn the snapping on and off, all that stuff. Here's our minutes and seconds timeline. We have a tempo track that we could click on and we can change the tempo, or we can use this drop down arrow. If we wanted to have tempo changes, we can write it in manually in our song if we wanted to do that, which is kind of nifty. We have our time signature here. Again, we can click the plus button and we can change the time signature if we like. We can just close this by Xing out here. We can also add a marker here wherever our playhead is. We can add a marker by clicking the plus button. We have a marker dialog box that comes up. We can just name it, let's say intro. We could change the color and we can just hit apply. We can actually add some comments to the marker as well. And you'll see right up here, we can apply that intro marker. If I move my playhead here and I want to add another marker, see where it says marker 2, I can call this verse 1. Again, we can change the color and there we go. Now, if we want to delete a marker, all you have to do is just highlight and come down here and hit delete, click, verse 1, delete. So that's our marker track. Pretty easy, pretty simple. Gotta love it, okay? Right next to that, we have these 3 little menus here. This is going to switch. This is going to this is our track list. If we come over here, we're going to get our timeline settings. What we see here, all these little tracks that we went through, bars and beats, minutes and seconds, tempo, so on and so forth, we can show or hide those just by clicking these little buttons, and we could turn these all off. So if we don't want to see any of these, we can do that. Or let's say we just want to see the markers, we want to see the loop, and we want to see the tempo. However you want to customize it, you can. Clips, show and hide. Here's our clip here. Let's say our acoustic guitar track here. See the clip, it has the name and such. We can get rid of the name by doing that. It makes things a little bit more easy. We can get rid of the quantizing. We can get rid of the gain control or the pitch control. So now our clips have no information on it at all. I don't necessarily need to know the name, but I like having the gain control and the quantizing here. So the gain control is kind of nice. This is clip gain. So we can just hover over our mouse here on a fader and we can just left click and you can see we're now doing our clip gain here. That's really nice. I really like that. Okay. So this is our timeline settings and our clip show hide feature here. We also have our grid lines here on our timeline that we could take on and off, and you can see in the events here behind the event, it's like translucent here. We could turn the grid lines on and off if you want to do that. Pretty nice, right? We can just close that dialog box. So that is this section here. If we walk across the top here, we got, again, really simple, not a lot of stuff here to look at, but it's pretty cool. We have our view. So right here, we're set to look at our timeline display. If we click that button, we are now in our mixer view, which is the same as using the shortcut Command equals. You'll see that switches back and forth. You see these little icons up here are switching as I'm doing Command equals, right? And if you hover your mouse over it, it'll tell you what it does. This will allow us to show or hide what we see here on the left-hand side. So let's say we want to get rid of the track menu. or get rid of that channel strip right next to it. We can click that, or get rid of the info. That will get rid of the info along the bottom of the transport. See down here at the bottom, our info is our audio device, our sample rate, our buffer size, and all of our CPU and memory usage right along the bottom of the screen here. We can get rid of that as well if we want. And also the monitor, the meters on the on the right-hand side of the screen. We can get rid of that as well. So that just opens up the screen and we have now maximum real estate to see our tracks that we're working on. So again, you can just click those and you can turn them on and off. Depends how you like to work. We have our beats per minute that we can go ahead and we can change. We have our click track here that we could turn on and off. We can make hover our mouse over and left click and drag up or down to change the volume of the click track, which is always helpful. If we click the little arrow next to the click here, we get another menu here where we got some additional features we can do to our metronome. We can do count-ins. We want a 1, 2, or a 4-bar count-in. So if we're actually performing the part, if we're the musician recording our electric guitar and we have to take our hands off the instrument to turn on, to hit record and all of that stuff with your mouse and your keyboard, you can have a count-in before it starts recording so you can get your hands back in position, which is really nice. We can send the click to headphone mixes to the cues if we want, or we can also change the sound of the click with a handful of different sounds to your liking. Pretty straightforward. We have our counter up here. Right now, it's looking at it in bars and beats. By moving my playhead, I'm just left clicking on the timeline here. If I click this, I can look at it in minutes and seconds, the counter, or I can look at it in samples, depending on how you want to work. Again, pretty straightforward. We have our transport here in the center, usual suspects. We could turn the loop on and off. Here we have our loop start, stop, and the length of the loop. So if we turn the loop on and we just left click and drag a section of music here, you'll see that it shows you the start and stop and the length of the loop that I just created, and the loop button automatically enables. So if I play this little loop of music here, I can move the whole loop around, or I can shrink it up here. It'll just repeat, which is kind of nice. So we could turn that off just by clicking that. There we go. Next up, we have some global settings for solo, mute, input, overload, and record. We have our monitors section here where we could turn up and down just by left clicking, or we can double click. We can zero it back up here. Then next to that, we have workflow, and workflow is going to open up another little sub menu underneath the transport, depending on what we're working on. So the first one is record. And that is going to give us some additional features, turning on pre-roll, post-roll, record, mute, all that stuff here. If we come over here to the left-hand side where it says record, we can also change it here to MIDI, edit, or mix. Okay, that's the same thing as coming over here to this next button. This is our MIDI functions. Here's our edit functions, copy, paste, little macros. Right, so if let's say we've highlighted this track and we do fade in, we should be able to do fades and all that stuff, okay? And then we have our mix down view here where we can actually, as we click along this view of our entire session, you'll see the playhead moves along with it. And we can also do our mix down here when we want to export our song here. We click the mix down button. We're going to get the mix down dialog box that we can change the file type, the sample rate, where we want to do it, all that stuff. Pretty standard stuff. Okay, so again, along the top, there's not a ton of stuff to look at, right? Things are very clean, very easy, only the essentials, which is what I really like. That is this whole edit screen. Right now, if we switch over to the mixer screen, Command equals, what do we have? Left-hand side, we still have our track list. Next to that, we can open and close these things in orange. We can open and close the different sections of our mixer. This is really nice the way it's laid out. It's laid out in like a real analog desk, a real analog channel strip, which is where I really enjoy the way this is laid out. It's got a real analog kind of a workflow. So we have our input section that we can turn on and off, the utility section, the tape section, the console section, inserts, sends, and outputs. So if you want to see maximum real estate on your screen, and you wanted to stretch out your mixer, your faders a little bit, you can do that, right? Or you can click and it'll shrink too. So on our inputs, if we turn that on, our inputs, if we click the input here, we can add change the input to the track. So let's say, we had our interface set up with, 4 inputs. We can choose input 1, 2, 3, or 4 if we were going to record on a track. Pretty straightforward. Our utility, if we drop down that arrow, that's going to give us things for delay compensation, for phase reversal. We can link, and we can also clip gain here. How do we do that here? We can actually also add a side chain input if we were doing side chaining. When we click on the word trim and we left click. There we go. Now we have a little slider. This is clip gain, right? Just like it was. This is no different than if we did this. When we were over here and we were taking this fader and we were turning it up and down, doing clip gain, right? It's the same thing, just done on a different screen. Okay? And if you double click it, it will open up and you can just type in the value if you wanted to do that. So that's our utility section. Our tape section allows us to add the universal audio tape extension plugins to this. Let's put the oxide tape. I know that one works. Okay, so there's our oxide tape. So now we have a little mini version. Without looking at the whole tape machine and having to play with all the settings, we can just adjust the saturation for every one of these, which is pretty cool. Now, if you wanted to put them on a bunch of tracks, we could do that as well. I believe we can come down here, hit our copy, right? And then we get a green light. And then if we just left click and drag, I'm just left clicking and dragging, paste. How about that? That's really cool. I really dig that a lot. So we can do that just by doing that. And if we want to remove them, we left click and we just left click backwards and say remove. There we go. Pretty cool, right? So that's a tape machine section. Console section. If you have the API console extension by Universal Audio, we can add that. And again, this will open up our channel strip window so we can see the whole channel strip in front of us here, right? Or we can see it in our channel strip view here, and we can click through the input section, the dynamic section, and the EQ section, right? Really cool. So you can look at everything right on the screen, which is kind of nice. And again, if you wanted to put that across all your tracks, just hit copy. See the little green thing? Take it and just, there we go. And then hit paste. And now we have them on all the tracks. That's nice and efficient. We hit remove, left click and drag, and now we removed it, click it again, and it's gone. That's the console section. Our inserts, we want to add third-party plugins, other Universal Audio plugins. We click that, and here's all our plugins. Again, we'll talk about more of this in another video when we get to the mixing portion, but we can search by different categories. We can just go through our normal, plugin windows, and we can grab a plugin. There's our Pro Q3 by FabFilter, and as you see, it'll work. Look at that. It all works. So yes, third-party plugins do work with Luna. Once we have a plugin here, we can see the icon, which is kind of cool. We can click this little square in the center, and this will open up the plugin window, which is helpful. The little 3 dots here, we can do a bunch of stuff to it, as well as remove it. There we go. So there's our insert section. Sends, if we had any sends, we can look at our sends. We don't have any, but if we had sends, sending something to a reverb or delay. And then our output section, right now everything is routed to the main output. And again, we can turn all of these sections on just by clicking that, and now everything is here, and we can use these little drop-down arrows to expand or collapse depending on how you like to look at things in your workflow, which is very helpful, okay? Let's see, down here we have, again, ways that we can look at. Let's see if we wanted to add an insert here. Let's add a plugin one more time here. Let's add our Pro De-esser. Okay, we'll close that for a second. If we hit the large button, it's going to open up the console section to make it large or small. See how we have large icons or small icons. Again, if you don't want to see the icons because your screen is small, let's say you're working on a laptop, you can keep them small. And just like with anything, you can click this and open it and close it. Okay, pretty simple. We can use our 3 dots here to remove the plugin. There we go. Underneath that fixed slots, this gives us all of the slots that are available for all of our inserts. So if we want to see all the slots that are open, if we have a whole line of plugins, we can do that, or we can just click it again and we can just see one at a time and add one at a time as we need to. So again, it's really simple. It doesn't give you a lot of options. It's just simple and it just makes sense. Okay, we talked about all our modifiers. If we want to copy and paste plugins across several tracks, we can do that. And then again, if we want to assign our console, which is our API, because that's all that's available right now as of the recording of this video, the vision channel strip, right? If we want to add that to multiple tracks, we can do it here as well. So we can, the console is flashing, we can just left click and we can just drag across here, and now we have everything there, right? So it's just a different way to add this. And if we want to remove it, we just, again, left click, drag back, scroll your mouse back, and it's gone. Okay. Down here, we have our faders section. If we hover our mouse over here and left click, we can make the faders a little taller or a little smaller. We have our automation up here for each track, right? All the different automation modes. We have our panners, record, input, solo, mute, all the usual suspects, right? We have our fader here. We can double click here and a box will open and we can name our track. And if we click the little color bar along the bottom, that opens up the color wheel. We can do that as well, right? Pretty straightforward. And that is all that's on this screen, with the exception of our feedback section up here at the top right-hand corner, which we talked about in the last video. So you can communicate with Universal Audio's engineers and give them some feedback. Tell them if there's a bug. You can attach some files, all of that stuff if you're having any issues with Luna. And that's it. So in the next video, we're going to actually go ahead and we are going to take these tracks. We're going to organize them, color code them, set up buses, do all of the stuff that we would typically do in a session. So we're going to do that in the next video and kind of get this thing prepped to do a little quick mix and add plugins and play around with the stuff so you could see how Universal Audio works, and Universal Audio Luna works, and how easy it is and how quick it is to get around. So I want to thank you so much for taking a look at part 2 here of the Universal Audio Luna recording system. As I said at the beginning of the video, I want you to go to homerecordingmadeeasy.com because I want to give you that free $100 mixing course. It's my gift to you just for visiting homerecordingmadeeasy.com. Once you take that course, if you want to take one of my other full-featured training courses, and we have everything from beginners, intermediates, advanced, recording, mixing, mastering, EQ, compression, parallel compression, and much, much more, I want to give you 25% discount coupon code. Just use the coupon code YouTube25. If you put that in at checkout, it'll take 25% off any course on my website. So until the next video, make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Let me know in the comments below if you use Universal Audio Luna and what you think of it, or if you're thinking about switching, or if you're not going to switch, why aren't you going to switch, or if you have any questions. And until the next video, I've been Dave with homerecordingmadeeasy.com. Thanks so much for watching me today, everyone, and I'll see you in the next video.